Okay, 6 o'clock. So I'm going to call this meeting to order for our regular city council meeting, Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. Let the record show that all city council members are present, as well as members of the city staff. I don't think so. And also several members of the public are here as well. I have asked Councilor Stevens if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would all please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We'd now like to have a moment of silence, as is customary at the beginning of our meetings. During this time, we'd ask that you keep those members of our first responders in mind as they are out doing their jobs and their duty and protecting the residents of Riverdale as well as the other people that are in our city. We also ask that you would keep the city council in your thoughts so we might make the correct decisions as we make decisions tonight. Thank you. We now have a time for public comment. This will be a time that you can address the city council with any thoughts or concerns that you might have or any ideas. No action will be taken on these items. As you approach the mic, please state your name and your address and try to limit your comment to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and reports. We'll start with number 1, the mayor's report. I don't have a lot for tonight, but one thing is I do have a meeting with UDOT tomorrow, kind of to introduce me to the leadership of the Region 1 UDOT people. And so if anybody has anything, I think that meeting's at 1:30. If you have any concerns or thoughts or something that's been bothering you, it'll be a great opportunity for me to kind of have one-on-one time with them. I have a couple of things I want to talk to them about, but feel free to reach out, email, text, anything, give me a call, but I'll bring that up with them. I went to the WACOG meeting this last Monday, and pretty interesting stuff. So we have our reverse 911 that we have in the city that we hope would work in some sort of an emergency. Come to find out that system doesn't really work very well. Almost no one's enrolled in it. Most of the people that are don't live in Riverdale or whatever city they're supposed to anymore. The data is completely outdated. They did have one data load from like 2021, but it wasn't even put in the system yet. And the last one was like 2017. Like, it's really, really bad. And then when Mayor Porter from South Ogden tried to use it because they had a big water leak, the county came back and said, no, you can't use it. It doesn't qualify. And so he was trying Facebook. He was trying everything he could to get the word out. He called them again. They said, no, it doesn't qualify, And I have relatives that live in South Ogden anyway. Now they've decided it would have probably qualified, but after the fact. So they're looking at a new system. There's a different system. This is like called Code Red, I think. I can't remember what the name of the new one is, but several cities in Utah use it. It's way more effective. It's not even an opt-in one necessarily, and it might cost a little bit of money, but I was really surprised at how unprepared we are to reach out to our residents if something goes wrong. So, I would be very supportive if the county tries to put something together that's better. So, and that's all I have for the mayor's report. I will turn some time over to Mr. Brooks for the city administration report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by way of related to that, we've started to discuss some things with our department heads. Chief Shawley's been spearheading this, but we want to get our emergency preparedness better. We're not there, and kind of with the changeover and not having people in place, that hasn't been getting done for about a year and a half or so. We've even got some positions we got to be worrying about, so we'll be working on that and starting back up with another regular meeting like we used to do in the past to try and get us updated, because we've lagged on that. So I I'll save one of these till the end, but I just wanted to say, if you look in the packet there, the report on sales tax, again, is very strong. The nice one about this one, this is our February. This is our Black Friday and December sales. So this is the good one we like to look at. And if you see that, the purple in that for February, because it takes a couple years or months before it gets reported to us. So this is the one we want to look at. Sales were good. Not great, but they're good. We're still strong. But again, I think it's just something we have to keep in mind, that we live and die on sales tax. And so if there's ever inflation or anything like that, and that starts to go down, that's going to hit us. So that's why it's good that we're looking at some of these other options. I don't know that we want to have all our eggs in that same basket. So Rich had some good stuff in there. If you saw that, we discussed this at length with him, met with him last week about his budget and different things, and he had some good numbers on the community center usage and the luncheons and stuff. If you get a chance, take a look at those. A couple of things that were kind of interesting, and we'll be bringing some of that stuff into you budget time. Just some concerns that we're seeing over there and some patterns that are going on. So you can see a little bit of that in what he provided there. As far as employee recognition, we don't have any of them on the 5 or 10 year cycle, but we did have a number of them there. All police officers, Joel Pippin sitting at 18 years. Jamie Boots is at 16, and he reminds me about every time I see him how much he's getting ready to retire. So Jamie will be gone first chance he gets. He's more than happy to share that information. But I think we've got 3 or 4 over there that we're going to lose not too far away. They've all got their time in, so they could go anytime. Again, this is a factor we're going to have to look at and consider come budget time, because they're good guys, but it's just they've reached their time, and I don't think they plan on staying in law enforcement. So. And then Officer McNeely, good pickup we got from him. He's sitting at 4 years. So, staffing authorization, again, we're under what our allotment is, and I did want to just mention we've received word just this week. When I keep saying good things are happening, we received word this week of 3 new things that are coming in, and the thing that's nice about it is they're not new builds; they're backfilling. So some of our vacancies are starting to pick up. So I think just overall the city is in good shape. We'll give you more information of that when it gets a little bit more advanced and we can tell you. But good things. I mean, we're kind of excited about it. A little bit surprised they come out of nowhere. So we like to see that. Just by way of information, I met with the Wazlowskis after the last meeting. We played phone tag for a couple of days, but I finally got a hold of her. I believe that fence is in and up now. Here's the thing, and this is another example of what we talked about.
Wow.
They come in and they talk about all these things. I had answers for all those, but that's not the time nor the place to do it. And so when I did tell her, I said, that's already in the works. We already had the fence contractor lined up, but getting somebody out to do work right now is almost impossible. It was already lined up. But I drove by there, I think, 2 days ago, and I think it was up. The slats aren't back in the fence, but the fence is up. And so we're good there. I explained to her as far as the homeless people and what's going on with all that kind of stuff. So I think they're happy. She got all the answers she wanted, and we addressed that. So LPC, just by way, we were in there again yesterday. Oh, man, we've got some nasty things coming, and I think one of those, the one that we've been concerned about, is probably going to go. And so we will be affected by that. I don't know that it'll have as much impact on us, but it could force us to trigger that West Bench RDA this year. We may not have a choice rather than that getting affected by that new law. So we'll have to deal with that one. I don't know what else we're going to do, but it is what it is.
Which bill is it? Do you know the number?
Do you remember?
151.
150.
Maybe 151, I think. Yeah.
House bill.
I think it's House Bill
House Bill
151.
151.
Has to do with economic incentives.
There's going to probably be an action alert coming, so get ready to contact legislators and representatives.
Yeah, when they send us one of those from the league, what they ask us to do, especially council members and the mayor, to make personal contacts with the local representatives, because that's the situation where this is really bad for cities. We need your help, and we got to put some heat on these guys. And that one's, well, I think it's going to come. They voted to take a neutral position on that yesterday. Don't ask me why, but they did, and that's the one I gave them an earful on. So we'll see. They shouldn't. They should oppose it right to the end, because it's not a good thing for any city in the state, and it's going to impact us drastically. Impact RDAs. You can pretty much write those off for a couple of years until they change the law. So But that's where I'm a little bit nervous. I think it would be RDAs from this point forward. That means we may have to trigger that one because I don't want that affected by it. So even though we're not quite ready, we may be forced to do that one. We'll play it by ear. We'll see once that passes in the final form what it is. I've got 2 or 3 other things, but I'll save those to the end so you can move on and we can bring those up.
Sponsor is for 151.
Schultz, the Speaker of the House, and this is where I have a problem with this. Is you bow to threats, and that's basically what's happened. Is he's come out and said, "I want this bill passed, and I'm not going to negotiate with you." Well, that's not how the process is supposed to work. But the fact that he's the Speaker of the House is probably going to pass. And that's where I think the league should have taken a stronger stand. Even if we lose, we've got to send a message that this is not a good thing. And if you tie all this housing to commercial developments, you're going to stop your commercial developments. And actually, RDA is more specific. But it's just, I don't know how well thought out it was. And I don't know that the league's thinking this out too well. And that's why I wouldn't take a neutral position. I would oppose it, even if we're going to lose. Because that's what we should do. It's the right thing for the right reason, but that's where it's coming from. We got a lot of building and housing bills everywhere, and they keep talking about this affordable housing. Well, my son's still living in my basement because even with all this housing going on, none of it's affordable. So I don't know that you can blame cities for that. We're not stopping it, but it's still not happening. So you need to be looking at developers or somebody. I don't know where the cost is, but it's not us that's stopping it. And so that's where it's frustrating because we're getting the blame for it, even though it's not us. I mean, you guys, as you drive around the community, look at all the building that's going on. I've never seen this much. It's insane in some places. But it is what it is. We'll deal with it and we move on. But it is frustrating as cities. It's just a tough one. And they got a few weird ones, but some of them affect us, some of them don't. This is the worst one, though. And we'll update you on that, too, as it gets a little closer and we know some finalized forms, so. That's all I got for now, Mayor.
Okay. Anything on the community development side, Mr. Eggett?
Maybe just the new addition. One of the backfill ones that Mr. Brooks might be referencing is J-Dogs. That's been newly announced and added. It's if you're not familiar with it, they're in the Vivint Smart Arena in Salt Lake and Utah counties. Really simple menu, kind of like an In-N-Out style. You get like 2 options and away you go. But it's supposed to be really good hot dogs. So there you go.
And it's going in by the Starbucks there by 300 West on the corner.
It's delicious.
Existing building. Good endorsement. Okay, and then the last thing under there, we're going to do the special recognition for Captain Tracy. So, Chief Shawley.
You know, it's always a pleasure to stand up here and do recognitions and address our people when they do something special. They do amazing work all the time, but when they do it outside of work, in their personal time, it seems to be a little bit more impactful. And in this case, it was very impactful. So I'm going to make Nate come stand here awkwardly for a little bit because that's always fun too. I'd make Ashley come up, but I don't do that to her. She's pregnant. This one took us a little bit longer just because of the way the council sessions were set up and some of the things were going on. But this happened back on December 4th. And Nate was driving through Tremont with his family. And an intersection, a guy blew an intersection and T-boned an SUV, flipping it outside. Had 2 elderly patients inside. Nate responded care to the 2 patients. One of them was suspended in a seatbelt. He was able to get that person out of their seatbelt. And then worked with Tremont Fire to help extricate the patients out of the vehicle because it was a technical extrication, which we all know that's what we do around here. So he got to utilize some of his knowledge and help out another department. In addition, then he continued to help and provide medical care to the 2 patients. And there's no doubt, talking with Tremont Fire, that some of the efforts that he put forth made for a positive outcome for these 2 people. So we want to recognize him in our award policy. We have the option of giving a Distinguished Service Award for recognition. And so we're going to give this to Captain Nate Tracy during an incident at Tremont. Captain Tracy assisted the positive outcome of 2 victims in a rollover accident. So with that.
Thanks, Chief.
That's great.
So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Where's the trip to Disneyland?
That's awesome. We definitely have great firefighters in our city, and we appreciate that. They're great all the time, not just when they're on the clock. So Thank you. That's well deserved. Okay, we'll now move on to presentation and reports item number 3, Hill Air Force Base Compatible Use Plan presentation from the Matrix Design Group.
And Patrick Small will be presenting that, and he's here present, and then Michelle will put on the presentation here in a second.
Not sure how close I need to get to this. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all regarding the Hill Air Force Base Compatible Use Plan. It's a project that's been ongoing since 2019, but we finally brought the plan to completion. The implementation is the next step that follows. While we're setting up, I do have some hard copies of the report. It's unfortunately fairly voluminous. But these are for the city, and then there's a companion executive summary brochure which goes through some of the recommendations that came out of the project that I have for you all as well. I don't know. I'm afraid if I give them to you now, it might distract from my presentation, but do I turn these over to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had this all ready to go and then
Thank you. Do you advance? Okay. No, that's good. So it's a privilege to be here before you to discuss this, and your participation has been instrumental in the project. Unfortunately, I don't have this all memorized, so forgive me if I periodically look over at the screen. Next slide. So this project began in 2019. Layton City was the project sponsor, but of course there were 13 or 14 different jurisdictions, a number of different stakeholders that participated as well. I'm with Matrix Design Group. We've done probably about 90 of these types of compatible use plans around the country, and I've done about 40 of them. So we brought our expertise both with the Air Force and the air mission and the different types of tenants that operate not only at Hill Air Force Base, but the Utah Test and Training Range and the Little Mountain Test Facility as well. So next slide. So what I kind of want to go through with you today is a little bit of an overview of the project, talk a little bit about the compatibility issues that were identified and the recommended strategies that came out of the project, and then talk about next steps and answer any questions that y'all may have. Next slide. Next slide. So a little bit about Compatible Use Plan. It's a collaborative process. It's principally funded by the Department of Defense Office of Local Development Community Cooperation, an odd long departmental name. But it's driven by the community. So even though it's funded principally by DoD, it's community driven. It's not one-sided. It's a collaborative process that involves not only the base, but it's really critical that the surrounding communities participate as well. As you could see, the product of the process is a body of information. So it's really a set of information about what happens at the installation to help communities understand what the operations and the missions are, a little bit of other information on the installation as well. And it also has a community profile for all the surrounding communities that participate as well. So it's really intended to be a body of information to help communities and the installation make more informed decisions based on the information that's happening and the activities that are happening both inside and outside the fence line. What's really critical to understand is that it is not a set of enforceable actions. It's not legally binding. The product is a set of recommendations that we kind of hope that the participants in the project embrace for implementation after the plan is endorsed or accepted by all of the jurisdictions. So we facilitate the process. We don't dictate the process. It's really facilitating what works best for the different communities that participate and the Air Force Base itself. Next slide. So why is the compatible use plan important? Just a couple of factoids on this slide. Team Hill, which is all of the 3 facilities, employs a significant number of people. Those people live in your community. They have direct contributions in your community. And the installation itself contributes approximately $3.7 billion to the state and regional economy. So those are fairly big numbers. But protecting the installation is only one part of the equation. Making sure that communities can continue to develop, have that economic viability is equally important to sustaining the mission. Next slide. So benefits, protecting the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of the community. So when we go into some of the compatibility issues, you'll kind of get a better sense of why that's important. Maintaining quality of life, economic viability, and then for the base, really protecting the mission, making sure that the people who work at Hill Air Force Base, whether they're active duty or civilian contractors, are protected in terms of what they do in the region as well. Next slide. So project study area, there were 14 communities that participated in both, well, actually 3 counties, Tooele County, Davis County, and Weber County, and a number of surrounding cities, of which Riverdale City participated in the process as well. So that was very important to get as much regional participation, because the impacts from Hill Air Force Base do extend far beyond the fence line, as you people who live in the community probably experience some of those impacts yourselves. So next slide. So who guided the compatible use plan? There's really 2 committees in addition to the project sponsor and the public. The 2 committees, one is the policy committee. That's kind of a oversight committee to make sure that the recommendations that come out of the process are politically acceptable, viable, realistic. And then there's an advisory committee as well, who are principally what we refer to as subject matter experts. So they have the local expertise. They understand the local planning environment. They typically help inform the elected officials in terms of decision making. So Mr. Eggett was involved in the project from the advisory committee perspective. And then we also involved the public. So we created informational brochures. We did public forums. We had a project website where we received public comments and feedback throughout the duration of the project. And it was important that they had an opportunity to review the public draft, since some of the recommendations that come out of the project do have some political implications that really are dependent on the will of you as the council and may impact the citizens as well. Next slide. So our process had a number of steps. We kind of defined them as discovery phase and then the plan development. So we initially met with all of the stakeholders involved in the project, gathered their information, identified compatibility issues relative to the installation, things that people in the community might be experiencing in terms of military operations, things that happen in the community that might have an impact on those same military operations. So the conclusion of the project was that voluminous plan with a set of non-legally, non-binding recommendations. Next slide. Next slide. So through our process, we looked at 25 different compatibility factors, and we organized them into 3 key areas: social factors, resource factors, and development factors. Out of those 25, we identified 18 factors with issues. So There were 43 issues that came out of the project. And so what you see on the screen there, the bolded compatibility factors and the numbers next to them represent the number of issues identified for each of those factors. So a lot of communication and coordination, opportunities for enhancement between the communities and the installation leadership, some relative to land and airspace competition. You've got the Ogden-Hinckley Airport, you've got the Salt Lake City International Airport, and you have Hill Air Force Base as well. Some issues relative to water quality and quantity, a number of communities concerned about PFAS or PFOS, contamination from the installation extending out into the communities and how that mitigation or remediation is occurring in the surrounding communities. Some numbers cut off there, but under the development factors, I know noise and safety were significant issues, particularly for the public in the surrounding communities. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. Next slide. And if I'm going too fast, please feel free to stop me. So how do you achieve compatibility? There's predominantly 6 methods. And I talked earlier about information sharing and having a body of information to make more informed decisions. That's really the first starting point in terms of a compatibility plan. The other 2 items that are really key and critical and solve most of the issues is communication and coordination, making sure that the right people are talking to each other and that they're sharing the right information to help make those informed decisions. Partnerships are important. Communities are dealing with confined budgets. The military installations are also dealing with that same issue. So where there's partnership opportunities for different types of activities on the base or in the community, that's another opportunity. And the last 2 that are up there, policy and regulatory, are really, I don't want to say the last worst case scenario, but those are things that have political implications. And some of those things I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight. Next slide. So those strategies that we identified predominantly through committee input, so the policy committee, the advisory committee, also through public input, because we did get a good set of recommendations, particularly with respect to noise from the public that participated in the project. Obviously, with the technical staff, like Michael was instrumental, and then from our experience doing these around the country for different installations, understanding what works, what doesn't work, and what is most effective is kind of how we arrived at the strategies that were in the plan. Next slide. So for those 43 compatibility issues, we identified 110 unique different strategies. And there's a kind of a set of types of strategies up there. What's really important about that 110 is that not every strategy that addresses a compatibility issue will be appropriate for each jurisdiction. So there may be multiple ways of achieving the same objective, but doing them in different ways. So one community may say, you know what, we support a regulatory approach, something that goes into our code, whereas another community may say, you know, we think we can achieve that through direct coordination with the installation, and we'll take that route. So there are different strategies that are there for you all to contemplate in terms of implementation. Next slide. So one of the things that's really important is making sure that the compatibility issues are appropriate to the different areas. It doesn't make sense to apply strategies to a broad geography if there's no impact in that particular area. So defining those geographies is a key component of the compatible use planning process. We did that, and we call those military compatibility areas. So those are the areas where I don't want to say all of the strategies are targeted, but a significant number of the strategies are targeted. So we identified one for noise, we identified one for safety, we identified one for bird, wildlife, aircraft strike hazards, and we identified one for vertical obstructions. The composite and the outer boundary of all of those compatibility areas we refer to as a military compatibility area overlay district. And so that boundary is going to be unique for each jurisdiction. And on the subsequent slides, what I attempted to do was identify how those geographies are relevant to Riverdale City. So next slide. With respect to the overlay district itself, it surrounds Hill Air Force Base and all of the jurisdictions, or a number of jurisdictions in the surrounding areas. And it's really a planning tool to look at where strategies are appropriate. And so on the larger map, not the inset map, I kind of define the geography of Riverdale City in red. So there are a number of those compatibility areas that do intersect with the city that are relevant in terms of the recommendations that came out of the plan. Next slide. So one of the big things is aircraft noise, and the pink area, there's kind of a pink line down at the southern boundary where the installation is and the city is. I kind of identified the city boundary with the yellow line that's on the map. That pink line, which is the 65 decibel noise contour, which is the modeling for the aircraft noise from Hill Air Force Base, extends into Riverdale City. There is some land use guidance from the Department of Defense in terms of what types of uses are appropriate within high noise areas. Now, one of the things that's really important about the plan is that the Department of Defense does not have any authority outside of military property. So these are guideline recommendations to ensure the quality of life for the citizens that live in the communities. So within noise contours, there are some what are referred to as noise-sensitive land uses, residential, hospitals, child care centers, child development centers, educational facilities, places of worship, that might be more sensitive to noise than other types of uses. So in that land use guidance really applies to that area that is within the pink boundary on the map. The mint green hatched area is what we refer to as a noise awareness area. What's really important to note is that even though the noise modeling draws contour lines, noise does not stop at those lines. So that's probably fairly obvious to you who live in the community. So what came out of the process was creating this noise awareness area that might facilitate education in terms of community understanding of not only what those noise impacts are or why it's relevant, but also some kinds of tools that can be employed within those areas. And so on the left-hand side are a number of recommendations that came out of the plan. Everything from the military, including the communities in the process when they do their noise modeling, but even the military using the latest noise modeling tools, because there are some deficiencies in terms of the modeling that they've done that's incorporated in their side of the analysis that they do. And that's part of what we heard from the community, from the public when we did our process, was that, you know, that noise model may say 65 decibels, but if I hold up a decibel meter on my property, I'm recording 113, and it's affecting my quality of life. So having better modeling will help the military better understand what those impacts are. And then there's some things that the military can do as well to, there's things that the military can consider to reduce the impact on the communities, such as not using the afterburners as much, or conducting more intense flight operations at the Wendover Airport on the western edge of the state of Utah, things of that nature. So there's a number of activities or strategies that came out of this, including incorporating restrictions on noise sensitive land uses within that 65 decibel noise contour. Next slide. Airfield safety. So these are areas where statistically, if an aircraft mishap were to occur, this is the area statistically where that is most likely to happen. I drew, it's kind of hard to see a white boundary where Riverdale City extends. It's partially in what's referred to as accident potential zone 1, with another box that is accident potential zone 2. Again, these are areas where the Department of Defense has created recommended land use guidance for communities to help protect the health, safety, and welfare of those who reside within those areas. And there are some recommended restrictions in terms of both uses and intensities of uses. So the primary goal from the Department of Defense land use guidance is to reduce the congregation of people within those areas, such that if there was something to happen, the loss of life would potentially be reduced as well. So one of the recommendations that came out of the plan for the safety was incorporating some of those land use restrictions, both in terms of densities and intensities and types of uses within those boundaries that would be within the city. Next slide. Bird, aircraft, wildlife, strike hazards. This is actually an FAA recommended boundary around an airfield. It's actually around an airfield, both civilian and military, where certain types of uses that can attract birds and wildlife can potentially cause damage to aircraft or more serious consequences. So the entire Riverdale City is within the 5 mile. It's a 5 mile statutory boundary from an airfield. There's certain guidance as well because it is FAA in terms of either restricting types of uses or controlling the potential for becoming attractants within those areas. So I'll take an example would be a golf course that has a water trap. Those can frequently become attractants for birds or fowl. But there's ways that you can design those with riprap so they don't encourage birds to access them. So there's different things that can be done within that 5 statutory mile boundary in terms of golf courses, retention ponds, landfills, transfer stations, things of that nature. Next slide. Vertical obstructions, and I have drawn the city boundary this time in black, really refer to the airspace that surrounds Hill Air Force Base runway. This is also something that is mandated by the FAA and the Department of Defense in terms of preventing vertical obstructions from occurring that might impact the navigable airspace for both military and civilian aircraft. It's a little bit colorful and it's a little bit complicated because it's kind of like a stadium. It radiates out from the runway in three-dimensional space. The closer you are to the runway, the lower the recommended heights are. Development that is above 199 feet has to go through an FAA process to determine whether it's a vertical obstruction to the airspace or not. But there's other things that communities can do, and certainly the closer you get to the runway, even development that's less than 199 feet or structures that are less than 199 feet can be vertical obstructions. And it's not just things that are human-made, like communications towers or tall buildings. It's even things like trees when you get close to the runway. The complexity of determining whether something is a vertical obstruction or not is complicated to do manually because some of the surfaces are sloped and some of them are plateaued. So identifying whether something penetrates a sloped surface is dependent on understanding a number of factors. What we recommend and what we have done at other military installations is simplified and automated the process using GIS so that you can click on a map and understand at that exact point what the maximum buildable height would be without having to go through a complex process of triangulating what the airfield elevation is, what the elevation at the development site is, and what the funky imaginary surface height is. So there are tools and ways of addressing that can assist communities as well. Next slide. Alrighty, so that's a really brief overview of the 110 different types of strategies that came out of the process. So we've completed the plan development and we have the document. There's a chapter at the end of that document, and what's principally discussed in that short executive summary brochure are the set of strategies for implementation. So those are those 6 things: information, coordination, communication, partnerships, regulatory, policy. So in that document, in the last chapter, which is the implementation plan, there are all of those 110 strategies, and they're identified by when they should be initiated. There's a description of each of them, who is involved. Some of them can be done by an individual jurisdiction. Some of them require a collaborative effort. Some of them may be short-term, some of them may be long-term. Some of them may be appropriate as you determine and your constituents determine are appropriate for Riverdale City. Some of them might not be. So one of the things that we look for, and I think we passed these on to Mike if we haven't, is a resolution for endorsement. So one of the things that we look for from each of the jurisdictions is acceptance of the plan based on your participation in the project. Doesn't mean you have to do everything that's in the implementation plan, but it's an indicator of support. When we talk about implementation and the different types of activities, some of those might be more involved. Some might require additional funding. The Department of Defense agency that funded the plan also has funding for implementation. So in order to obtain that additional funding for implementation, the federal government, the Department of Defense, looks for certain things to demonstrate that there's a cooperative willingness with the communities and the installation that is looked on favorably. So there's multiple audiences for this plan. There's you as the local community. There's the installation in terms of their decision making. There's also the Pentagon, and basing decisions, realignment decisions are being made on a daily basis. So having this plan in place is really important to demonstrate to the Department of Defense that this community is interested in compatibility with the military, and attacking those low-hanging fruit in terms of implementation. Those are typically the communication coordination things. Demonstrates a cooperative spirit in terms of implementation. So those are things that the city can do and that you can do now. They're not dependent on any other jurisdiction. They're laid out fairly clearly in terms of the implementation plan. When the Department of Defense looks at implementation funding, the more things that are done to demonstrate that cooperative spirit, if you will, the greater the likelihood that they are to provide that additional funding. So we're not looking for the city of Riverdale or Riverdale City to be that sponsor. That would in all likelihood be the project sponsor for the plan itself. But it may have some value to you in terms of implementation, things that may be more resource impacting to the city. So if you were looking at things like regulatory or policy in terms of your long-range plan or your code, your zoning code, that's something that could be assisted through that funding mechanism with the Department of Defense. So it wouldn't all fall on Mike to have to tackle. So the other part of that follow-on action is endorsing what we call the Implementation Coordination Committee. So you heard me talk about a policy and advisory committee that participated in the process. To help keep that momentum going for implementation, we recommend an implementation committee, kind of the same cast of characters that participated in the plan development, because they have that institutional knowledge in terms of what went into the plan and how to keep it going. So there's also a companion resolution for the city to consider for endorsing and participating in that implementation committee. Not that you would lead it, but just participate as you had in the plan development. So having said that, that is my presentation. And if you have any questions or comments, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. All right. Well, we appreciate all that work that went into that, and we look forward to maybe hearing from Mike and discussing maybe passing a resolution in support of that. But it was very informative. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We will now move on to consent items. Number one, consideration to approve meeting minutes from our February 1st work session and our February 1st council meeting. Are there any changes or corrections other than those that were mentioned in our work session? If there are none, a motion would be in order to approve.
Move to approve consent items with changes that were brought forth in the planning meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Okay. We'll now move on to action items. Number 1A, this would be to open a public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding the sale of real properties located at approximately 1570 West Ritter Drive and 1585 West Ritter Drive. Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, just briefly, just by way of an introduction before you go into your public hearing. And I mentioned this last week, that's what spurred this whole thing, but we have those two properties up there on Ritter Drive. Back in January, we received an offer to purchase from Jen Barlow and her group, and she's here tonight. So we presented it at the council last week. It fits with the appraisal that we had done on the property. It's been more than fair, and probably even, I think it's a win-win for the city. There's a lot of benefits to going this route. And so we presented that to you. By our statute, we have to have a public hearing on this thing, and so that's why we're here tonight, to see if there's any public comment or opposition to that. And so if not, we have a resolution after this. But do you have any questions before we get going? And Ms. Barlow's here if you had any questions or anything before we went into your public hearing. I think it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. So
With that, we would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion
Okay.
and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the public hearing is now open. Seeing no public comment, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Now move on to item B, consideration to approve a resolution 2022-05 authorizing the sale of real properties located at approximately 1570 West Ritter Drive and 1585 West Ritter Drive. Mr. Brooks.
again, this has been fully vetted by staff. We feel this is a good proposition for I think all parties involved. So we would recommend that the city consider this and pass it as we've set it forth here.
Okay. Any comments or questions about this resolution? If not, a motion will be in order.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2022-05 with the changes addressed during the work session.
Second. Oh,
You can
you
have the
beat me.
second.
No, you beat me.
All right, real quickly, do we need a dollar amount on this because of the purchase contract?
It would be the same amount, 107, I believe,
Okay.
was what was in the purchase. So yeah, it'd probably be good to
Didn't
make
we
that as
talk
part of
about
it.
Times two.
Amend your.
What's that? Times it by 2? Try it, Al. See what happens.
10% bonus, yeah. Yeah, is the motion okay with that?
It is, yeah.
And the second is okay as well?
I think we are.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Hilton,
Aye.
Counselor Hanson,
Aye.
Counselor Arnold, Counselor Stevens,
Aye.
Counselor Merrill.
Okay, looks like that resolution passes unanimously. Congratulations and thank you. We're excited to see what comes of that. We'll now move on to action item number 2, consideration of resolution 2022-06, authorizing the execution of a development agreement amendment between Riverdale City and Bachland and Development LLC is submitted by Bachland and Development LLC. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll address both of these, both the 2A and 2B, because they sort of go together. Even though they're separate items, we need to consider them as separate items. We've been negotiating for the last few months with Bach Homes on the development currently here south of the city. We're all aware of this. We originally entered into a development agreement 15 years ago, which is set to expire, and that's why Part B comes into play on this. We have reached a point where we're really close on finalizing this, but there are a couple of items that were still sort of up in the air, and one in particular that I just didn't feel comfortable with signing off on as staff and bringing that into you, because I don't think it's fitting for us to make that call. That would have to be something the council would do. I just think it's too important on something like that. So that's where we're at. It's kind of a philosophical difference between us and them. They are concerned with our piece of property down there that, and I'll just address that one paragraph. There are other ones in there if you want to bring them up, and we've highlighted them in your red line version in there. But that one paragraph does request that we tie up our land, in effect, the 40 acres that we have down there, for a certain period of time. They're concerned, and they can explain this further if they want to. They don't want to have competition. with us being, a landowner down there, 40 acres, they would ask that, we tie that up and not sell that or let anybody else develop that without some reimbursement kind of things. My position is I'm really uncomfortable with tying any land up that we have because we never know what's going to happen. I mean, and as I explained to them, the reality of that's just not going to happen because in the city's eyes, a park is probably more valuable. Not probably, it's more valuable than housing is to us because we don't have a lot. And so when we have it, we obviously want to develop that as a park. But we never know when something freaky could happen. And if we had to sell that to somebody else to get us out of the hole for something. And so I just wasn't comfortable with it. And so that one we're a little bit held up on. That is in the amendment that would occur under that paragraph. I believe it's paragraph 5 in that. And like I said, we've hashed this thing to death. We've gone back and forth. It's way better than it was originally, but it does tie up our property. And I think it's my obligation to inform you of that, and you're aware of that. The other ones I think we're fairly close on and pretty comfortable with. There's been so many things in there. And to their credit, they've worked with us really well, and we've been able to go back and forth and get to points where we're pretty comfortable with it. But that one is still a hang up. And so that's where we're at. If you want to vote for the amendment, then that would include that property being tied up for a certain amount of time. If you don't want to go that route, then we've got to consider Part B because our timeline's running out on this. And Part B was just an addendum to buy us more time so we can continue to not only work on that, but anything else that may come up in the meantime. Now, this doesn't fully amend the original development agreement. It just amends portions of it that are outlined in this amendment here before you tonight. So if you have any questions on any of those paragraphs, or I believe we've got Brandon Ames is here from Bach Homes. He can probably give you more information or even fill you in on that paragraph if you have further questions on it. But that's kind of our take on it from the city perspective, is we just didn't feel that was something we were comfortable with and wanted to get your opinion on it to see where you guys were at. So if that is an issue, then we've got to move on to Part B. Again, as I explained in the work session, I wouldn't dismiss it or just have this thing go away. I would table it because we want to keep it in front of you because we're close enough that if and when we get ready, we still have it in front of you. We don't lose it and have to go backwards. I would hate to see this thing die just because we're so close, but that does expire next week, so we've got to take action on it. We knew this was coming, and we kept worrying and worrying and worrying, and we just weren't getting there. And now it's just come to the point where I had to throw both these at you. A little weird. We don't normally do this, but it's something we had to do to save it. So, any questions for me or for Brandon that you might want to address? And I don't know, Mayor, do you want to give Brandon a moment?
Sure,
if he
Brandon,
wants to
if you'd
say
like to come
anything,
up and address the council, that'd be great. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you too for all the work. We have put in a lot of work into this amendment, and the good thing is we've both been on the same path. It's just usually a few terminology items, in the amendment, number 5 was the biggest gap we had. Our concerns were that, we're looking at, in today's dollar, putting $170 million into this development. And so the people who pay my family wanted to make sure that I'm protecting their investment. And so that's, where we originally started with was basically saying the city can only do a park. But it was brought to our attention that that's a broad statement and not fair for us to tell the city what to do with its property. And so we recognized that and tried to massage the language a little bit. And then we thought, well, what if we just call out multifamily? So the city can do whatever they want as long as multifamily is not built next to us. And then we added a clause that even if it does happen, then we can be reimbursed for the $4 million bridge that we're building, up to 50% of the cost of the bridge if it's built during the lifetime of the development agreement, which can expire once we're through development of our parcel as well. So really what we're looking for is not a complete blanket statement of the city cannot do anything with its property, but that it cannot sell or be developed as multifamily development during the terms of the development agreement, which we're hoping, we get through pretty quickly. We're actively moving forward on this. We're ready to do the bridge. We've gone through a lot of, we've put probably about $140,000 into just due diligence on this project of designing the bridge with the city and doing hydraulic studies, hydrologic river studies, and so we're actively moving forward on this. We're not just talking about the development agreement. So our hopes are that we get through this quick and it's a non-issue, and then anything can happen with the property. But during construction, we would just like to know. Our concern is, when you put that many units in and someone else does the same, it would potentially hurt both projects. Because then now you're in a bit of a bidding war to try to get people to come in, and you're both losing profitability on rent, and then it could be a rough situation. So that was our thought process in the adding that paragraph and then massaging it to what it is today.
Councilor Arnold.
Have you thought about developing the park? As you're doing your project and you have your equipment there, you're doing everything you can that you could actually develop the park, and that way you're killing our bird and we're killing yours.
So I've done similar,
Preserving birds.
yeah, I've done similar deals like that, where one in particular in Tooele, where we had a 14-phase development that we worked through. And so we built 2 parks within that development. And what we did, we built the parks in exchange for not paying recreational fees on every home we built until it equaled the value of what we put into the park. So there could be things like that we could do as well. We could build, we're not opposed to building parks. We do it all the time. We have very good landscape and amenity design teams. We do them very frequently.
What's the recreational fees? So like the kids wouldn't pay to play ball or something, or what's
so I'm not sure about here. I was just giving that as an example, but there might be other fees that we could trade for the development of the park, because we are here. We do have equipment and we do have the ability and the design team, and we oftentimes tie them into our design, whether it's stormwater or getting water to the sites for public restroom facilities or sewer out of there. And so that is definitely something that we've done before. And like I said, we typically do it in exchange for a fee up to equal value of the park. It's a good idea.
This is a good idea. Thank you. Good comment.
10 years. I've been on this council 10 years. I finally
First
got
good
one.
idea.
Let me write it down. Just a second. Councilor Hanson, you look like you were going to say something.
I did have a question. It's more for my information, just from lack of experience. So once we approve a development agreement, do they come back at some point for site plan approvals? Like if I was just worried about the 2.5, about that they have leeway on the density.
Right. We haven't even gotten into a lot of that stuff,
But
but that will still happen.
That'll happen.
The development agreement just gives them some assurance that they know they've got some rights here and they can move forward a little bit further. But yeah, all that stuff will still come forward.
And then on the old agreement, and it's new to me. It's probably new to a lot of us, I guess, because it's been 15 years. But
Her dad wrote that old agreement, or was a big part of that. So that tells you how long we've been here.
one question was, there was a section that talked about, of course, they have to comply with all the other city regulations.
Right.
It didn't specify at what point. So does that mean they comply with it 15 years ago? Or does that mean they comply as of the start date of the construction? Because we may have really
They
different.
never don't comply.
Right.
Rules.
Anything that they would be invested in from the previous agreement would still be valid. But anything they change now would fall under current law.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Councilor Hilton.
Are you done? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what you're willing to share in terms of what you're forecasting, given the market you're building in? How many units in the next year and in the year after?
Sure. Our densities that were approved in the development agreement, I think we're 896. total units.
So the mixed use allows for 13 units per acre, and I think your number was 897 projected at the maximum.
Yes, and so within that, we very roughly right now, because until we know that we can do this, we didn't want to go too much further down the conceptual phase. But right now, we're anticipating one apartment complex that has townhomes around it, and then a second apartment complex that has townhomes around it, and then roughly 100 and some townhomes, and then I think it was maybe 50 single-family homes. So it would be a mix of single-family townhomes and apartments.
So in time frames, that's a lot to accomplish in 1 year. I assume you're describing the overall project. What would be next
Yes.
year's and the year after that?
Okay, so our first step would be to start the bridge construction, and there are windows that we can do that in because of some of the birds and their nesting periods and times that we're allowed to be working on the banks.
Sure.
So we had hoped to start bridge construction this fall or this winter, kind of do that through the winter, avoid the nesting period, and then start early next year on kind of grubbing and shaping and hoping to start going vertical by kind of like fall of 2023.
Okay.
And so then it usually takes us about 2 to 3 years from that point to construct and have the first apartment complex up.
Your only plan, excuse me for interrupting, to begin one apartment complex at a time?
Yes, because for a couple of reasons. So one huge reason is financial. So once we have the ground and we build an apartment complex on it, and we have it leased up to about 70%, we're then able to pull money out of the value of that apartment complex to build the next phase of the development. And at that point, that might be townhomes, or it might be the single family homes. The market will drive that a little bit. If we feel like we built the apartments and boom, they're filled up, we're going to be more incentivized to do that again.
You're going to try to pre-sell to avoid that delay?
So on our homes, Bach Homes has always built spec homes. We don't usually pre-sell and build, for the individual.
Sure.
For a number of reasons. Protects
'Cause
us.
they all lost money.
Protects us in that. And with the apartments, I don't know exactly how our apartment management team does that, but Bach does. We currently have about 4,000 apartment units that we own and rent out. We have our own property management company within our company. We have our own property management team within our company. We have our own real estate agents, architects, landscape designers, civil, everyone. And so we are not, and never really have been, in the business of building an apartment, trying to get it rented up and selling to someone else.
Okay.
We're very long-term oriented. The owners are from the kind of Riverton area, the four brothers, and so they take a lot of kind of personal pride in what they do. And for instance, this is kind of a side note, this is probably not particular to this, and I'm sorry, but one of their very first apartment projects in Kearns, we're currently renovating for $7 million, and not that anyone asked us to or that we need to, it was time. And you can't even ask for more rent after you do that. It's just, rent is what it is. But that's always been our model. So whatever we do, I know the apartment building will be the first thing because that allows us to pull capital out of it to continue the project. And then after that, it'll be market driven. Okay. We'll have the site designed in 4 phases. That gives us some flexibility. The order of the phases may not be 1, 2, 3, 4, but it'll allow us to maybe do the single family homes next. Sure. Or whatever.
Thank you.
Is there an idea on what size of apartment building that would be? Apparently under 189 feet since it's in the flight danger zone.
It will be under that. Because we typically do wood construction. Okay. So we will be under that.
Counselor Stevens.
I watched your presentations on the to the planning commission, and so I heard your explanation, and you've used the same term in conceptual phase. I personally am not a proponent of rentals. I would like to see owner occupied as much as possible, and I would. My inclination is not to support things that are rental, but I will support things that are owner occupied.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that we all were that way and have been for a really long time. But Salt Lake County just flipped for the first time of being more rented than owned. And it's just the market that we're in, even with housing. Most markets in like Georgia, Nashville, even Texas now, big markets are building homes and entire subdivisions to rent them. People don't have the credit. They don't have the ability to buy. They don't want to a lot of times. They don't trust that their house is a good investment. It's just a mindset that has changed. And so we do, especially with the townhomes, we like to sell a good portion of those. So even though we're building townhomes, those would be owner occupied and the single family homes. But the need in Utah is smaller, affordable homes for the most part, and rental. It's just a changing world that we're trying to adjust and deal with. As we put tremendous amounts of capital, we do a lot of studies on that before we do something.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've done your studies, and I have anecdotal to go by, and I don't agree with it.
Sure.
But given an option where there are townhomes and maybe condos on the second floor, third floor, is as opposed to rental, I think it can be a viable option, and I would highly encourage you to consider those. But anyway, that's just my perspective since you are in the conceptual stage.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Arnold.
I would move to table, right?
Right.
See, so it's a
Resolution.
resolution 2022-06.
Yep.
As stated within the packet.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to table this item. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
No
So-
table.
You don't
So
want
it that passes. We will table that for now, and then that would mean that we need to move on to item B, consideration of resolution 2022-07, authorizing an extension to the existing development agreement between Riverdale City and Unity, or now owned as Bachland and Development. Is there any discussion or any questions about that extension?
Well, I just wanted to mention my own personal, for tabling the other one, is I do have an issue with that item number 5 that you were still working on. And I do, in reading State Code 10-8-84, I do feel like it violates that by restricting the legislative powers of the city council. And not that we would move and have, like you said, not that we would have a development there, but that it's just not within our power to restrict our own powers, I guess. And that would be my biggest concern. And so that's why I'm in favor of passing item B instead. So you can continue to work on that.
Yeah, and if I could just, and I'm glad Annie did that, because I was going to interrupt and say I would like to know what your objection was or your reason for tabling it, so that can steer our negotiations. And I assumed it would be that paragraph, but I didn't hear that from everybody. Just so I know, so we can work with that. So if you could maybe just give us some idea, and Annie's spot on that. That is an area of concern. But I want to make sure if you had something else too that you were concerned about, so that we know where to go with it. So,
Any other reasons, Councilor Arnold?
My concern is we've been talking about a park there as long as I've been involved with the city, and we have done nothing with it except for let the disc golf guys kind of squat there. And so I think it's important to, I would love to partner with you guys, see a park there that is not someday down the road. I mean, you guys are parking your equipment there, that somebody's rolling it around, benefiting the city. And if you're putting in $170 million, I think you have the right to rent them. You know, especially if you have pride in the things you're doing. That's the type of thing I look for in Riverdale, is somebody that has pride. And if you're coming in and saying, "Hey, you're partnering with us," I'm all for it.
Great. I think it's a great idea. I'm very open to that.
Councillor Hilton.
And I agree with that. So, you know, I know you're both good negotiators and you've hammered this out and you're sick of it, but you hadn't talked about that. And so I'm glad we gave you an opportunity to pause here, put the brakes on it, talk through that park idea, talk through that restriction, which I agree I don't like. I'm not going to vote for an agreement that includes that. So I think let's have you fix that and get comfortable with this before you bring it back.
No, that's good. We have options here. I don't have issues with that. I just need to have the direction. So, and I'll reiterate again, these guys have been wonderful to work with. We don't always get that. In fact, we usually don't get that. And so it's been refreshing. They've been really good. I think we've had a good relationship, and it's just been refreshing to have that. And I feel bad, but I just think it's the right thing to do. So if we can do something else that makes them at ease, I'm fine with that too. So,
and I'll add that we're thrilled that you're the developer. We're looking forward to great things happening over on that choice piece of land that's right in the middle of where everybody wants to live. That you've got the secret land that everybody probably would like. So I challenge you to benefit your development with our parkland.
Yeah, absolutely. We are not foreign to that at all. So I appreciate the idea.
Councillor Arnold.
I'd move to approve Resolution 2022-07, authorizing an extension to the existing development agreement as stated within the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Is it a never ending or is there a time limit?
I think
6 months.
6 months is what it is in the resolution, right? That's
Right.
what it's stated in the resolution. Yes. Good question. Okay. With that, Ms. Maragoni, it's a resolution. Would you poll the council, please?
Counselor Stevens?
Nay.
Counselor Hanson?
Aye.
Counselor Merrill? Aye. Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
All right, that resolution passes. We have an extension to get some things worked out on that development agreement, and I will just echo what they've said. We're super excited for you guys, and I kind of echo what Councillor Hanson said. Technically, I think that clause is illegal in that. I don't think we could vote for it legally, to restrict our rights with our land.
Could be. I'm a civil
could be.
engineer.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
Why, that's why these guys are here. And,
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And but I think most of us are really on board. I mean, it's going to be sad, but it's a beautiful piece of property, and hopefully, you guys seem to have the capital and the plans to be able to do something great, and maybe the park will be something that can benefit both of us. So.
Could be. If I could just say one last thing, when I said a couple weeks ago that we have some big things coming up in the next 10 years, this was one of them. This will change the face of Riverdale. Realistic. Look at our population. It will skyrocket. And I've got two chiefs sitting here who squirm at the thought of this thing. Because it does. It changes our whole layout. And that's why that bridge is so important, because we've got to have dual access in there. We can't just rely on the one. So credit to them. They want to make it work just as badly as we do. So this will be fun.
All right. Well, we look forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you
being
all.
here. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, consideration to accept the annexation petition for the property, the 3,467 acres, 3.467, that sounds better, acres of property located at approximately 4450 South Cozydale Drive. Mr. Eggett and Ms. Maragoni.
Thank you. As discussed in the work session, AFCU is the applicant on this, and AWA Engineering is here representing them on their behalf. Natalie Nichols is in attendance. If you have any questions for her. The original applicant was Rick Magnus in her office. Again, as discussed, this is just an opportunity to verify that the petition that has been presented to staff and to the city is accurate and has been submitted and paid for correctly, and all the boxes are checked to allow us to advance forward. If you're comfortable with doing that, at that point we would then proceed through the process of letting the recorder certify the petition and making the county aware and all the other entities aware and do that. And there would be a lot of legwork that she and I would work on together and notifying entities, et cetera, of where it's going, and then take it to the planning commission. So that's kind of the next steps ahead. I don't know, there's a whole lot more to say, but if you have any questions for me, glad to answer.
Any questions? Counselor Arnold was first.
Approve the acceptance of the annexation petition as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Counselor Hilton with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Very good. So you can start to pursue that. This is the very, very first step on that
Sat there
annexation.
with
So.
bated breath this whole
Yeah.
We robbed you of the ability to speak. Would you like to speak?
She all right, yeah. She earned it tonight, so that's good.
Yeah.
Like that was good, yeah. Hopefully that goes smoothly for you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, motion to approve a new liquor license for new liquor license local consent for Cheddar's to be located at approximately 4171 South Riverdale Road. Mr. Agate.
I'll take that one.
Actually, yeah, Michelle.
Ms. Maragoni. All right. Used to say, I think at the bottom it used to say who. That would be
I guess
helpful to
who
me.
didn't put it on the agenda.
We
Do
missed
that.
that this time. We recognize that. It'll be on the next one.
That is very helpful to me.
That was
so-
only, yeah.
Just grab it.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just the local consent. They haven't started building yet, but they wanted to get our consent so they can get a, what did you call it? A conditional license from the state, so that they know that they can have the license before they start their building and project, putting all that money into it. So I did realize after the work meeting that they've got the business name, the DBA, as Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen, number 2213, and then the entity name or the owners as Cheddar's Casual Cafe Incorporated. That's why the difference is there. They've got a DBA listed on it. Like you said, it's at
call it Cheddar's.
4171 Riverdale Road. They've turned in all of the necessary paperwork. We've sent it over to Chief Brinkman, who's looked it over, didn't find any issues, and recommended approval. So if you have any questions, I can probably answer them, or Mr. Butler is here representing them.
Are there any questions or comments? So, do we want to have him come up at all, or no? Okay, that's why we don't have. We
Unless he
don't.
knows how close the schools are to.
Yeah, I was thinking through that. I was like, do we have any churches or anything in those buildings around there? But
They've actually changed the distance that it has to be. It's a little bit closer now anyway, so
Okay.
it's well within. And there's other liquor licenses right around there too. We've got Goodwood and Olive Garden. So
Counselor Arnold.
I'd move to approve the new liquor license as stated within the packet.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Very good. Congratulations on getting that. We're looking forward to starting to see some dirt moving over there. So, we've had a nice window of weather. So, hopefully,
I don't know if you heard me say earlier, but my wife went to a Cheddar's in Florida this week, and she's like really excited that it's coming in. So
Appreciate it. I've never been there. It's the first Cheddar's in the state of Utah, so it would be very important to entree into this.
yeah, we're very excited for it. All right.
it's like you get-
So number 5, discussion of action regarding council assignments. So traditionally we have some of the council members assigned to some kind of committees or different things to go to. And so this is what I was thinking for each one of you. Councilor Arnold is the mayor pro tem, and we'll just let him do that. He's got plenty of other things going, and I think that's great. I'm already looking at my calendar, and there's going to be some opportunities for you to exercise that. Those meetings, yeah, will be very fast, so that's good for you guys. So Bart was over the senior center previously in the last term that he's been on. He is asked to be over the mosquito abatement board or be assigned to that. He said he would continue the senior center, but I because we don't have that many assignments, I think we would just maybe have you do just the mosquito if you're okay with that. So we'll have him do that. I thought maybe Councilor Hilton, we would have you be over the senior center.
Okay.
Is that on the senior center board? Is that what it is, or
It's not funny, Bart.
advisory committee?
He does sit on that, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. They meet quarterly.
And good luck with that one.
Yeah.
Thank
They-
you.
they get
I'm
fired
so
up.
excited.
It'll actually be fun. It's a good experience.
Is it?
Yeah.
You going to be there?
No, but those who show up enjoy it. Cody will be there.
Cody Carden.
Carden,
Yeah.
and usually Rich goes too.
Okay.
Yeah, Rich is there a lot because a lot of those things involve him. So
So during my time on the council, I sat with the CTC, the Bonneville Communities that Care, and they meet very regularly. And but there isn't really a need for them to have a secondary person right now. I'll just continue to sit on that with them for now, unless they request somebody else. Counselor Hanson, this is a newer position, but I would like you to be our representative with the Youth City Council. Rich has asked that we have a city council member that works with them so that when they come to present to us, they see a familiar face, they're comfortable coming here. Our city council, our youth city council has done varying degrees of success.
She's been on it.
I know she was, and that's exactly why she's going to be over it, or our representative. And I look forward to seeing what you will do, in that capacity, and hopefully you can help them to be even more successful, more active, and they'll gain the knowledge that you bring. So that'll be good. Councilor Merrill, I don't have anything for you right now. And if I was you, I would enjoy that. Do we have any other committees or any other assignments?
Well, we got that one where they clean the toilets out and stuff at nights or something like that. Do we want to give that to her?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Now, I'm not saying that there won't be one, but these were just the ones I jotted down real quickly.
And that's active transportation.
What was that?
Actually, that is a very good one.
Yeah.
With Wasatch Front Regional Council.
No,
Or just the Riverdale City one.
Yeah.
We have had a transportation committee, an active transportation that works on like bicycles and walkable communities, bikeable communities. We had a really active one of those in the past. It kind of fizzled out when some of the passion kind of left. I don't know if you have any interest in
the
that.
person who was previously involved in that still is.
Is he?
Uh-huh.
Is it Staten?
Yep.
And he's still interested in it?
He's as a citizen, but
Right.
But I think some folks. Go
I
ahead.
think there might be a Weber County one too. We might need to look into
And that's
that.
the one I think
And I
Mike
think that's
is
what you're
involved
referencing. There's Weber County Active Transportation Committee.
Okay.
That might be what's being discussed.
Which is different than the Wasatch Front Regional
one
Council
of them, and I think it's
We-
Wasatch
yeah.
Front, just completed a study.
Investigate that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we assign you, let's look into that
There
a little bit.
I know what Councilmember Hilton's talking about. There was a regional transportation committee that's since completed.
Yeah.
It's a study between South Ogden, Washington Terrace, and Riverdale City.
Prepared a big book.
And resident Mike Staten was a part of that committee, so that might be what's being. But
That's what I'm talking about.
But that study has been completed, and at some point, the desire would be that the city endorse or accept that study. But there is a larger Weber County active transportation group as well that incorporates studies like that would have some kind of representation potentially. So we may want to explore that.
Yeah.
Maybe in talking about that and see how we want to present that.
And I want you to think about it a little bit and see if it's something you're interested in at all. Like the reason I got kind of excited, I will go into it in just a minute. It's not going to work, but anyway. So I think that's what we'll move forward with as far as assignments. Okay, those will work. And
A couple of years ago, I got there was a term being thrown around called affordable housing, and there was a lot being said on the legislative level. So I asked Mayor, and I sit on the participate with the before the WACOG
Yeah,
is
yeah.
affordable housing.
yeah, I see that meeting.
And so I participate with that one. We don't have a requirement to be there. If anything, it's by a mayor or somebody, and they usually say, who are you? You've been on those, and yeah. But I will continue to be there on that, participating. Actually, I just listen because they usually have a presentation to include the legislators who try to explain why they are doing what they're doing, and it usually is met with a lot of resistance, but they don't care because it's already passed. And so I'm there because I'm interested.
Yeah, that's good. And I see that meeting on my schedules, and I can't make it to that one. It's hard enough for me to make it to the 4:30 WACOG meeting, and so I just can't do the affordable housing. So if you can go to that, that's super helpful to me. That takes something off my plate. And please feel free to report on that if there's ever anything, because I see that meeting, every month. But
and Mayor Searle has had me attend that,
Good.
I'm still
Yeah.
attending that.
Please,
as
both
a
of you.
staff representative.
Yeah.
On that.
Although you're as yous participate as much as I do. I mean, I never hear you because some of them get pretty.
Mayor Dandoy has a lot to say on that panel usually.
Oh my goodness, it gets pretty heated because the cities do not like the legislator telling them what.
Yeah.
What they're anyway. It's very interesting.
Okay. So with that, we'll move on to our comment section. Anything from the city council? Any comments? No. Anything from the city staff? I think Mr. Brooks has a couple.
I do have a couple, but we did not. Do you want to do a motion to approve those assignments there? We did have
Oh,
it
is
listed
that
as
a
an
motion?
action item,
Like,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. Do we have a motion to accept those assignments?
I would like to make a motion to approve the city council assignment.
Okay. We have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll fly through these here. Let's see. The conflict of interest form that I delivered to you, that is by policy. If you want to look that up in 6-7, we're required to do that every year. We've never done it, but we need to. And it applies to you all as well. It's not all the employees have done this. The only ones who haven't are you guys. So Stacy's been bugging me and threatening me, and she finally got Michelle to do it. So that's how it got affected. But read 6-7 if you want. That goes into a lot further detail in the conflict of interest, and this is kind of a good policy that we have in place, and it's just you acknowledge those. And how I remember it, those first two generally pertain more to businesses, and if you have businesses that deal with the city, the third one's more of a catch-all, and that's where you'd want to put, if you got some little side things that may or may not be, just list them. And then those are supposed to be turned into the mayor at the end of January every year, so you will see this every year now. And you can do the same thing every year, but we do need to have those, and I'd like to have them tonight if you can. So, the new city council members, we didn't, especially Annie and Karina, have not had to go through. Bart, I think, has, but he's still welcome to. I need to get a time when you guys can come in and we'll do a little orientation with you and just update you on some of the codes and policies and practices and stuff like that. So, I'll be in touch with you on that, and if we can find a day.
I did it. I think it's.
Right, and I don't know that Bart would want to, but these two in particular, I kind of want to. We got some things we'll give you. It's not a big deal. We can get through it fast. And I generally bring in department heads. We may not do that where they're going to be coming in here shortly anyway with budget stuff. We'll see. Maybe just do short little presentations just so you get to know them as well. But think of some days, preferably if you can do a day. I know you have schedules and stuff, but think about a time. If I can coordinate that with you two, we'll get you in here and finish that up. The military academy has approached me, and they would like to do their usual yearly project. I don't know if you guys have anything in mind that they could do, whether they're cleanups or whatnot. I passed that on to Sean. Sean told them that he wanted the parks cleaned. I don't know if they don't want to do that, but they keep calling us for more projects. So if you have something in mind, just send me an email, and I'll pass that on to them. They like to do stuff occasionally for us, and they usually do a pretty good job to go clean up the parks and stuff. But I've had 2 calls in the last 2 days on that. So
Did we ever get the deadfall and the stuff for like the burn hazard or whatever behind the woods and all that kind of stuff towards the river? There's always been people talking about cleaning that out. So
Working on the
Army Corps of Engineers contact.
goes out to them to see if they can give us a definitive map of where those
Okay.
lines are. We did clean up both bridges last year and took all the deadfall away from them and underneath all of them. And we are looking at doing some controlled burns, some limited.
I wouldn't give them the control burns, but if you want to clean,
It's a good idea.
Can I ask something real quick? On Parker Drive, we've got the embankment of the freeway.
right.
And now there's a wall there, and it used to be there was a lot of trash that would blow over. It's not so much now, so the trash is organic from Parker Drive. Is Riverdale responsible for maintaining that area of on Parker Drive on the west side?
Technically, we're not. I mean, that's state
Okay.
ground. They were up there today, if you saw that.
Today.
They were cutting those
Mowing the
cattails
weeds.
down or whatever. So they do address it, but it's not really our responsibility.
There's
I know.
Tremendous amount of
It gets
clutter.
messy. There was political signs in there today that they were pulling out that's been a couple years old. So
That's a project
Well,
for the military academy.
Bonneville High's drama.
Dance and stuff, yeah.
And so I'm just thinking, if they want something neutral, because we've done that with the church groups, the youth groups, or
Right.
whatever.
And I can suggest that. I don't have a problem with it. That's why you during campaign season you see all those signs over there that we don't touch because it's not our property.
Right.
So we don't get involved in it. That's state. So
Do we have anything where they could put up a sign and claim ownership of the cleanliness of that, like they
the
do on
military
street?
academy,
Uh-huh.
I could check with them, see if they get so. If that's what you guys want, well, we'll sig them on it. Might as well. It's not going to hurt. So, all right, that's a good idea. Last and not least, and I didn't want to do this earlier because Jared had his thing in there. We have a lot of heroes around the city. I don't know if you heard or because this one's really fresh. It just happened just yesterday or the day before. But we had 3 officers that basically put their lives on the line to save somebody else. And it was amazing, quite frankly. And we got photographs today from people who were driving down the freeway and witnessed this thing. And you literally see our officers grabbing hold of a lady and saving her life, basically. It's amazing. We will follow up on that a little bit more and recognize them, but I just wanted to give them a shout out tonight. They know who they are, but I'll save their names, but I want you guys to know that these guys it's just incredible what we have. I mean, this was and I have some of the pictures here. We don't, it's a little bit sensitive, and unfortunately having those 2 interstates through our city with bridges, we have this issue come up occasionally. This is not the first time they've done this one, but this one was amazing. I mean, you literally see them clinging to this individual and saving this. So, and their own lives are in peril, but they do it. And so Scott passed kudos on to them. We appreciate it. And
You going to bring them before us?
we will.
Like
We will once we get a little bit more on it. This is really brand new. In fact, I haven't even seen the video on it. I'm going to go over and see it tomorrow. I did see the pictures, but it's real fresh. But we wanted to just recognize them and give them a shout out, but we'll bring them back. And probably next month sometime. And speaking of that, I'll bring Mayor Searle and Brent Ellis in next week. We wanted to do an open house for him, but with his health and stuff, it's just not getting much better. And I don't think his wife dares let him do that, nor do I feel comfortable with it. So we'll just bring him into a meeting and give our little watch and stuff away. We'll shoot for the second meeting in March for that. We'll bring both them in for that and just call it good. I just don't think that open house is a good idea. We wanted to, but for his health and safety, we better not. But that'll be coming next month. So that's all I had, Brady.
Okay, I got a couple of things. I'm going to go through them real quick. Oh, you bet.
If something changes through the course of the year, do you want these updated?
Yes. Yeah, anytime you have a change on that, contact Stacy, and she'll send you another one, and we'll update that. We always want that updated at any given time. By law, you really have to. So both state requires that. We always want to disclose conflicts. That's when you'll get in trouble if you don't disclose one.
Braden, can I ask a question about strategic planning?
Yeah.
Does it work the same way if there's something we want to hear about or get information on? Is it still like 2 council members or Braden or the mayor?
Yeah, I mean, we could handle that the same way because that's an open meeting. So just pass on that information. Contact me or Braden because it may be something we're already going to address. So contact us and let us know, and then I'll get with Braden, make sure we're squared away. But yeah, certainly get us whatever you want.
So that is one of the first things I was going to talk about. So we have our strategic planning March 1st, right?
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay. Just so everybody's on the same page, are we getting dinner that night? Is that going to be, where's that going to, that'll be here, right? Because we have a city
Yes.
council meeting first.
Yes. If the mayor tells me to order dinner, I'll have dinner ordered.
Well, I think if we're going to be here till all hours
I
of the
agree.
night, and I
Vegetables,
11?
cookies.
well, I gotta warn you guys, it probably is going to be a long meeting. Like it's going to be longer. We have a
It's on
lot.
weekday?
It's on a Tuesday. It will be right after our next city council meeting. We will go into strategic planning right after.
We'll have dinner.
I think we have to have
Yeah,
dinner. Like
we'll get some.
yeah. So, I mean, we can just eat. We can just eat while we're working. Even
Right.
it doesn't need to be a big break because we want to keep moving. But I just so people know and know what to plan for. I want to thank you guys for sitting through that compatible use presentation. That was difficult. It was long, and it kind of illustrates something I've been learning as I've been going the last 6 weeks. I get emails every day asking me to attend meetings and to do things and to do whatever. And that guy said, "Hey, I want to come to your meeting and present this thing." I was like, "All right." He said, "You guys have paid all this money for it, or helped with it. Not paid a lot of money, but helped with it. Let me come do it." I had no idea what that was going to be, and so me and Mike were like, "Yeah, let's do it." Yeah, I mean, I find myself sitting in meetings. I leave my work, I go sitting in these meetings, and I'm like, "What am I doing here?" So, just be patient, okay? Like,
It was long-winded, but
it was long. It is interesting, and it does affect us, and especially
I would be careful with his recommendations. That's my just broad guidance. At
right.
this point.
We want to be careful with that for sure. But just know, like, we do try to be sensitive of your time, and yeah, if I'd have known that was that long, I might have encouraged him to kind of just give us the trimmed down version or something. But some of the things I just get emails and say, "Hey, come to our meeting," and I show up, and then I'm like the only one there or something, and I'm just like, okay, none of the mayors obviously know that nobody goes to this meeting, you know.
They've been before.
They know, yeah. We're still in the rookie mode.
I was thinking about that as we were going through it. We've never limited their time.
Yeah.
But I think maybe we ought to start asking some more questions and seeing if
Sure.
they can't just give us a condensed version, because
How long
it ends
is
up
this gonna
delaying the rest of our meeting. So
Yeah.
we'll be a little more careful about that next time. I was a little bit caught off guard on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Just kind of give us the cliff notes on those
Right.
things, and
We'll be a little more careful.
it's a
on
good
those in
learning
future.
experience for us.
I thought Mike was long-winded.
Okay.
Mike's interesting. Mike's brief and interesting, yeah, and he talks really fast.
So, hopefully, all of you that have Facebook at least look at the Riverdale Citizens page.
Yeah. Which has turned into a lot of ads, but still look at it.
Yes. So, I encouraged a resident last week because
Brian?
She's Braden.
I have been approached by about 5 different
Triggered
people.
him to do that?
So I said, "Look, I told him to be here tonight too, but he's the one that started the discussion about the fiber, okay?" And
Diet?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think strategic planning would be a decent time to discuss some of that, and any information you could get for us on that.
Have they approached
there's
anyone at the
there's some
city?
different
Mike?
programs, and you know, so it's
Did they send us all an email? I think they did.
There was a good article in the newspaper about
Yeah,
a
I
new
read the
option.
article.
Utopia. I mean, we may even have enough to get Utopia. There's options. So I really am getting a lot of questions about it. So I was like, "Brian, why don't you put something out there and let us see how."
The city's not going to bond.
I don't think this one
Guarantee
requires
that
a bond.
No.
The Connects doesn't.
So
Connects doesn't, yeah.
So what was said on Facebook was that it was, we guarantee that the resident, 40% of the residents were going to take
They're
that
confused
service,
with
or
Google
we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that
that
may
might
be what
that
they
might be
require.
something we want to do as a city. It's just something that we would need to consider.
Or maybe we want to let them
we
have
have
a special service district where they front the cost.
we have our five city council members, and they get to decide together what we're going to do. And
Do we have it in the budget for a
Well-
bond for internet?
and we can discuss that next week. Like that's what strategic, or next meeting. That's what strategic planning. But just know that fiber is on a lot of people's radar, and I've been pretty against it for a long time. But I'm warming up to the idea of to something.
I can give you a little bit of information on that. I was approached by both South Ogden and Washington Terrace are looking at this
Yeah,
right now.
they've talked
And
to
so
me
it's
too.
just ironic that its timing's coming up. The dilemma Riverdale has is our population is so small. And so a lot of these places won't come in just for that because we're so small. But if we teamed up with the Terrace in South Ogden, ideally, then that kind of changes the dynamics on it. There are a couple of different options depending on what route we go, bonding being one of them. It depends on who you use. They are both negotiating with different companies. That Connects or whatever that was in the paper just last week is one of them that they've been talking quite extensively to. And I've asked Tom Hansen up there in the Terrace to keep me informed on that. And I let him know we would love to throw in our population if it doesn't bind us to something. If you just need numbers, count us in kind of thing. So they're aware of that. They're not really close to it, but we've started some of those negotiations. It's not brand new to us, so we'll keep you posted on that as it goes, and I'll try to get more information for you for that next meeting. But it's we've talked. But
When you talk population, are they wanting the total population or homeowners or rentals or apartments? I mean, is there
Payers.
limitations?
Yeah.
People that would pay
Customers.
monthly.
Yeah, it's subscribers because they've got to recover their costs on this. I'm familiar with Utopia because they did that up in Brigham City. Now, their format, according to Tom, is different now. They lean on the city as backup, but at that time they committed us as citizens, whether you used them or not, to pay for that. They put a lien on my house, which is still there, I think. I don't know that it's even been paid off, but I use Utopia, and I like it. It's a good service, but I wasn't happy with that aspect of it. That hit the fan up there, and I think that's probably why they've kind of gotten away from that. But yeah, they just forced us into that one, and I don't know that we want to take that route. You'll have
Your
a
city
war on your
council
hands.
forced you into it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so everybody got liens thrown on their house, whether you want it or not. I used it, and actually it's nice. I mean, I don't have issues with it. I use my internet through them as well, and you can get
Google
TV
spies
and
on
everything.
all
But,
your messages, but don't
right,
let that bother you.
yeah. So there are options there, and we'll keep looking at it.
I've heard that. That's why I asked if they were only targeting homeowners. I didn't realize they'd changed their approach.
This
Yeah,
one
they
is
have.
the one that's coming
But
out.
so there's different options. But ideally, we could get one that would just include us in just because they need numbers and they figure they could pick up 40% of our residents or something.
Has the
So.
terrorist told you what their risk would be?
No, and I don't think they've committed to anything. They're not that far, but they have been talking to people and negotiating some
Or what
things.
the
So.
ask is? I mean, otherwise they could come in and do it, right?
Well, the terrorist doesn't jump in on anything, really.
No.
Yeah.
They'll do what South Ogden does, most likely.
Yeah.
But no, and they could if they wanted to come in and risk it all, but they don't like to. That's why they try to get the cities
This
involved.
connects. I read the article. There's a couple of articles. One was on a TV station. Their claim to fame is we do not make the city get a bond
Right.
and pay for our construction. We do it on
Right.
a per subscriber basis, and then we bundle it in their monthly fee. That's how we get paid back for the construction.
Right.
So if that's their deal, I wonder why there's something they need from the city in terms of commitment. What are they looking for?
And I don't know, but I do know that that's one of the primary targets that the terrorist is looking at is those guys. So we'll keep following.
From the gist of the whole thing, it was more of a, we guarantee that 40% or higher will use this service.
Or
and,
we
and
have
if
to
they
pay.
do, or the city pays for it.
Yeah, that would be no. Can't guarantee that.
It's crazy.
Especially a little, that thing on the citizens page was, hey, do you want really fast internet for cheap? Sure. It means nothing.
I told him to get their attention, so that was good. Okay. Just know we're going to probably discuss fiber a little bit.
Okay.
Some options. We probably all received an email about possibly a memorial or naming a baseball field or something. Just know that we haven't ignored that. We are trying to get the ordinance in place for next meeting. Hopefully, we've got Mr. Douglas working on that, and so we're just kind of holding on that right now
Name
so that
the
we can.
field? Sorry.
Well, to
the
get our
bench.
ordinance in place. And then it's like, well, if you want to name a field, this is how much it costs. Or if you want to name a bench or a tree or a drinking fountain or whatever it is, so that we can be fair with everybody and we don't do this one and then put the ordinance in place.
Okay,
down
so
the
it'd be
road.
more general, not specific to this.
No. And it's something we were working on before that, to be honest. It's something I've been working on for a little while.
I got more information on that too, and I haven't talked to you about that one. I actually spoke with his dad this week on another matter, but I told him that that's coming up and that'll be in our next meeting. And he was really intrigued by the naming of a tree because his son was really into that. He went up on base, if I recall correctly, and named every tree on the base, what they were. So that was a passion of his. And so when I expressed this to him, he gave me a list of a tree that I thought we could pass on to whoever decides to spearhead that. But that'll be in next meeting. It's close. It was close before, but Sean hadn't signed off on it. And he's got it now and working on it. So we'll have it next meeting.
Roy has something that's kind of like, you can do whatever you want. You got to raise the money, but if you want to put in a bench, you can do this. It's this amount,
a
you
good
know.
idea.
And they have just kind of a spreadsheet of this is how much it costs, so you can do whatever you want. So we're working on that. Councillor Hanson, did you get enough time to talk about any of your concerns? Do you want to bring anything up as far as?
Well, I don't know if my microphone's on. I appreciated Steve or Mr. Brooks mentioning, giving us the rundown on the packet. I know there was kind of some frustration at the last meeting on that because we got pieces at different times. And so it made me wonder if we should, as a council, maybe discuss a policy of what our expectations are so that there isn't any confusion or frustration amongst us or the staff on what we expect for the packets and that kind of thing, the public documents. I didn't know if there was any feelings on that.
Okay.
Do you want to change the way it is?
Well, just so that we know what to expect and that the
Okay.
expectation is coming from us, you know, of what we need to be able to be prepared for the meeting. And
I can address it and at least tell you how it is now, currently. And again, this started with your father. We didn't used to do it. In fact, initially when we started packets, we did them by paper. So everything you would have had on your laptop came to you in a hard copy. We were out delivering those on the weekend. We eventually evolved into I was the first one to use an iPad down here by Larry's order to try and see if electronic would work for us. That tells you how long I've been here. But, you know, on my recommendation, I said, we need to go electronic. This is crazy that we're doing these hard copies. The goal is to try and get them out Thursday, but it just is almost impossible sometimes. We're lacking things, and so then it pushes it into Friday. I don't think I shouldn't take that back. There has been an occasion when we've had to push it into Monday, but we like to give you the weekend to look at those things. Packets are not required. By law, the only thing that's required is the agenda. And so we try to do the best we can. They're not perfect, but we can always amend things. As long as it's on the agenda, whether they're resolutions and ordinances and stuff like that, we can always tweak those. But by law, we have to have something in advance for the public to look at. So that's the big thing, is I got to get those out to you. The packets, you know, we try to because it informs you. You can make better decisions by having that stuff in advance. So ideally, I mean, we rarely go into the weekend. I think Michelle's been in here on a Saturday before, but we try to have those out by Friday. That gives you the weekend and Monday to look at those things, and even Tuesday if you get the chance. So that's where we're at now. Occasionally, like, was it this one that we did this separate document? If it's a really, really big document, we will hold that one and not send it with the packet. It'll come separate because it's so big that our packets would be massive and we can't email them to you. So sometimes we'll hold one of those out and send that to you separately. That's kind of what we do now. I don't know what we could really do different. That's just something we've been doing for quite a while, and it seems to work. It's not perfect, but it does seem to work. And I don't know that we could get it to you much earlier now. The biggest thing is Mike's got a lot of deadlines between his stuff. So when he has a planning commission meeting, we push that right into Thursday almost every time. And we're still getting stuff from developers, and it's just hard to have it ready any sooner than that. So
I'd chime in on that and just say the way the city does it is exactly like America First. That's what a surprise. Larry brought it to you from America First. And as a person who prepared some of those packets, I agree with you. Your target is to get them out on Thursday before the meeting, give them the weekend. But in reality, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But overall, I think the way you're doing it and have done it for the time I've been involved with the city works pretty well.
Understanding that it's dynamic. Things are unpredictable. Some things you can predict. There are some things that are beyond your control, and it's like, okay, you know, and you roll with it. That's fine.
yeah. I can tell you the last 3 Fridays I have been on the road somewhere and literally had to pull over when Michelle lets me know that's in my box, and I'm reading it on the side of the road trying to go through stuff. So I'm going to miss things. And then once I'm done with it, we get the final okay from Braden before that comes to you guys. So it goes through a lot of hands, and it's a long process. But, you know, we're on the move, too, and it's just crazy. I mean, it is chaos on Thursdays and Fridays on those packet days around here.
And
We don't live in a perfect world. It's dynamic.
I usually redo that packet 3 or 4 times.
And I'll be honest, like when I was new to this, the first one came on a Friday, and they sent it to me, and they said, "Can you look over this so we can send it to the city council?" Well, I was working,
Take your time.
and I didn't even know. I was like, "Well, I got an email. I don't know." And Michelle's text like, "Hey, look at the packet so we can send it to the city council." Oh, okay. You know,
Because we're blaming Michelle for the delay. And
yeah,
that's what we do.
exactly. And so it is. It's kind of like, okay, this makes sense. Okay, this, you know, but I don't proofread it perfectly, and it is crazy. And part of that's part of being in a super busy city right now. Like I've been in those meetings on Thursday, and it's like, get the stuff to us, you know. So there's a lot of moving parts, but
I think you do a good job.
you know, At the same time, we want to make sure that they're professional.
Yeah.
They reflect a lot of work by our city staff, and we want to make sure that they look good, that they're a public document, you know, and so we want to make sure they look really good.
And that's my main concern is I do need the time because I am busy at work too. So I need the time to review it. And we all do. I mean, none of us should come unprepared to the meeting when we're doing the city's business. And so we need the time to read the packet. We need time if we need to research something or look back at something. Yeah. And for the most part, it's been great. It's been fine. I do agree. We can always do better on quality. And I get that everyone's busy. But I feel that way too, that this is what we're presenting to the public. And especially when it comes to resolutions and ordinances and contracts and agreements, this outlasts all of us. And so I just don't like the idea of my name being attached to something later that someone's like, you know, direction without a T. I mean, even though it's silly.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I mean? And so I get it. I think I can be more patient. And I'm happy to share what I find before the meeting if I can.
We really appreciate that. And if it's any consolation, your brother was the same way when he got on the council. he mellowed out after a while, but he was the exact same way.
We're big readers as kids. We can't. It's hard. It's distracting because you can't focus on like the Bach Homes development when you're like,
right.
There's, you know, and it's. I know it's a personal thing, but
Michelle promised me that this one was a perfect packet, and you found a couple errors, so she will be fired tomorrow.
Hang that on your head.
No, I appreciate it. That was just my concern. We could, you know, I can do better. I appreciate the packets. It's been great coming on Fridays and being able to review them. And even like those last minute ones last week, it wasn't a big deal to get, you know, your agreement on Monday. There was time to review it. But that's my main concern, that we don't push it too close. I mean, if something has to wait and it can wait just to make sure that it's right and presentable, then, I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but if it's timely, it's timely. You know, there's nothing we can do.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay. And one last thing. I've had a couple of residents approach me about seeing near misses and car accidents or coming out of it's probably coming out of Krispy Kreme area. And they're just wondering if there any way, and I actually was in this area this last week. Is there any way we can just think about this? Maybe put a sign or something that's kind of like, safest way to exit is to the left, you know what I mean, to go over to like Ruby River to the light,
so they're turning left onto Riverdale Road.
So they're going out what is by Truly Nolan or something, and they're like, hey, I'm just going to bust it across all these lanes and make a left or something, where as you're coming out of like Mobetta's and Cafe Rio, you can make a decision to go right towards Riverdale Road, or you can go left and kind of loop around over to the light. And if, you know, obviously I was like, oh yeah, I'm not trying that, let's go to the light, but I don't know.
Yeah, both those are going to be problems, and especially when we get that further developed there with Katruvis's property and that next one up, then that one's going to become more active. And we always knew those are bad spots. I mean, obviously we don't control that completely because it's a UDOT road, but we could maybe put something inside that's internal and kind of just say recommended or something to.
Yeah, recommended exit.
That's why I wanted that road open when Raising Cane's was coming up, because we wanted to get people thinking that that's how you go in and out right there. If you're turning right, you're fine. But I don't know who drives across Riverdale Road and turns left. To me, that's insanity.
Yeah, we have NASCAR. We have people that think they're NASCAR drivers.
I might at night, but I'm not going to. I don't even try it during the day. That's just suicide, if you ask me.
The people that know wouldn't, but some people end up in there, you know. And so, even recommended. I know it's not a normal sign. But
let me talk to Sean and see what his thoughts are.
Safest exit. Okay. I don't know. That's probably not. Okay, that's all I have.
I'm going to bring something.
Yeah.
Councilor Hilton.
Okay, so you mentioned you have your meeting with UDOT, and I was going to bring this up at some point anyway. So I noticed a lot of freeway exits, especially freeway exits, have engine brakes prohibited sign. The question for you, for UDOT tomorrow, is how does Riverdale go about the process of getting one installed on the exits that pertain to Riverdale? We have a lot of engine brake noise pollution in River Glen, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning. So
That's an on-ramp.
No, they're using it to off-ramp. They're slowing down.
Oh yeah, there is an off-ramp right there, isn't there?
Right. I'm almost guessing that's a state code. I'm going to have to look at that, but I will almost bet that that's already there that prohibits that.
Do we need a noise ordinance in Riverdale? Because it's our noise pollution. Do
Well-
we need a noise? But while I'm bringing this up, the airbag company explodes airbags in their rear parking lots.
That's what the sound
constantly, and that's noise
Really?
pollution.
I
Yes.
never knew what the sound was.
Yeah.
That explains a lot. I'd never even thought about that, but that makes sense.
The biggest.
Hey, well, while we're at it, can you do something about those?
The problem on those,
No, not that one. We can't control the government.
we can only control the noise in our city. If it comes from outside of that, it's just like the
But if
bass.
they violate our noise,
Yeah, that's a tough one. Let me see what we can look at. I don't.
only bring it up for Braden's meeting with UDOT and see.
I almost think
what they have
that
to
break
say.
one may already be in code. You might want to bounce that off
Yeah, I'll
of them and
talk to
see. But I think they have some restrictions in there when you're around populated areas that prohibits that. So that may just, I mean, I don't know what good it's going to do, but they could throw a sign up and say it's prohibited here. But
And Chief
I'm
Brady
almost
could
guessing
enforce
that's
it.
already in there. But
What they're, as you come off of 84, the trucks, and they're transitioning onto I-15 northbound, as there's some yards that are back, they hit their air brakes there,
Oh yeah.
and those people years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and UDOT did, I haven't seen a sign that there was a no air brake at one point on that stretch.
I believe the actual signs say air brake
Prohibited.
ordinance
Yeah.
enforced.
Yeah.
So whose ordinance are they enforcing?
Yeah.
It's probably ours.
It's interesting because that's federal. Like I-15 is federal, so I'm not sure
Right.
about that. Like,
well,
might
but
not
and the
even
state
be
kind of
UDOT.
regulates those, so they may have passed something that would have. I'm betting that's there, but we need to check on it.
And we could get one over there on that 84 thing too.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I
There
think.
was something there at
Yeah.
one time, I haven't seen
No,
it.
that's a great thing to talk to them about. Okay. So if there's nothing else, we just need a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
I just want to say, those firemen with the mustaches are looking fine.
Has
It
he
is
got a
thing.
mustache? I didn't even
No, all
notice.
those-
Flags mustache walks the room before you.
We did have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.
I'll let them know.